Ladies and gentlemen, the debate, the allegations, the drama, whatever you call it, surrounding USAID continues to escalate, and it's become the big story on the urban debate for the second day in a row. It's gotten so complicated, so messy, that it almost seems that by design. So let's try and break it down for your viewers and make sense of what's happened. Let's put together the chronology, if I may. First, let's address Donald Trump. For the second time in 2 days, the maverick US president has criticized the reported $21 million in funding allocated by USAID for voter turnout in India. Listen to what he had to say.
$21 million for voter turnout in India. Why are we caring about India turnout? We got enough problems. We want our own turnout, don't we? Can you imagine all that money going to India? I wonder what they think when they get it. Now, it's a kickback scheme, you know.
But was the $21 million really meant for India? Yesterday, we questioned whether it makes sense to take Trump's claims at face value, a man known for exaggerating and sometimes getting facts wrong. Today, the Indian Express, if you subscribe to the newspaper, you have read this, published a report which you have put on our screens. A report that claimed that this mythical $21 million that you just heard US President Donald Trump talk about was actually meant for Bangladesh, sanctioned in 2022 for voter engagement in that country ahead of the January 2024 elections. Now remember, of course, we all saw what happened in 2024 in Bangladesh. There was a regime that was changed. Now, according to US federal records, there has been no USAID-funded election project in India at least since 2008. Naturally, the Congress sees this as a win for their position. Here's what they had to say.
2016 की नोटबंदी से ठीक पहले यूएसएड से कैशलेस इकोनॉमी पे समझौते नरेंद्र मोदी करते थे। तो ये डिमोनेटाइजेशन क्या अमेरिका के कहने से हुआ? किसको लाभ पहुंचा रहे थे आप इस डिमोनेटाइजेशन से? अमेरिका के हाथ की कठपुतली बने हुए थे। करोड़ों करोड़ों हिंदुस्तानियों की नौकरियां गई, अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेक्टर बर्बाद कर दिया। अमेरिका के कहने से किया। हम भी ये जानना चाहते हैं। कोविड में $100 मिलियन नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने यूएसएड से लिया। हम क्या मान लें कि आप भी उनके हाथों में खेल रहे हो? कहने को कोविड के लिए था, दरअसल कुछ और था। तो बोलने से पहले इन्हें 10 बार सोचना चाहिए। अपने संघ का इतिहास देखना चाहिए, पिछले 70 सालों का, कि संघ ने कहां कहां से पैसे लिए, विदेशों में क्या क्या ये करते हैं। अमेरिका में संघ किन बड़े धनाढ्य लोगों के ऊपर निर्भर रहता है। अब मेरे मुंह से नाम निकल जाता, फिर केस होते हैं।
But the BJP has its counter ready. They argued that the Indian Express report conveniently overlooks what happened in 2012, where a memorandum of understanding was signed between the Election Commissioner of India, at that point led by Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, and the International Foundation of Electoral Systems, known as the IFES, an organization which is linked to George Soros's Open Society Foundation, which in turn is largely funded by USAID. So you can see that entire flowchart of the link of power on your screens. The BJP points out that under the Modi government, USAID's direct funding to the Indian government also dwindled while its funding to NGOs continued to increase. Listen in.
India is an independent sovereign nation. संप्रभुता भारत की हमारे अंदरूनी मामले में कोई विदेशी ताकत क्यों हस्तक्षेप करेगी? It is worrisome that leader of opposition, the party in opposition, the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi, who have taken oath under the constitution to preserve the integrity and sovereignty of our country, are indulging in anti-India activities. Modi ji se नफरत करते करते वो अब भारत से नफरत करने लगे, यहां के नागरिकों से वो नफरत करने लगे। मोदी जी को वो अपनी क्षमता से, जो उनकी लोकप्रियता बची नहीं है, उससे हरा नहीं सकते, इसलिए विदेशी ताकतों का वो सहारा लेते हैं।
So with claims and counterclaims flying, here's the official government response. They're looking into it. Let's hear it from the MEA spokesperson.
You know, we have seen information that has been put out by the US administration regarding certain USAID activities and funding. These are obviously very deeply troubling. This has led to concerns about foreign interference in India's internal affairs. Relevant departments and agencies are looking into this matter. It would be premature to make a public comment at this stage. So, relevant authorities are looking into this matter, and hopefully we can come up with an update on that subsequently.
So despite all the back and forth, we still don't have clear answers. How did millions from USAID continue to enter India unchecked for years? Do all parties, political parties, use external aid when it benefits them? Why hasn't any government come clean about the real purpose of USAID funding for all these years? Why hasn't there been an official inquiry into it? Why are we relying on what Donald Trump continues to say or what Elon Musk's Department of Government Affairs continues to tweet? Are we still being influenced by US domestic politics? These are the big questions that remain unanswered once again. So let me go across on this special Friday edition of the Urban Debate to my guests. So joining me, Jasmine Sandwalia of the BJP. I'm also being joined by Sujata Paul, spokesperson of the Congress Party. For the second day in a row, I'm very grateful to have both Kishore Subramaniam, financial expert, and Tehseen Poonawalla, political analyst, are joining me as well. And I'm also being joined by Suhasini Haider, who's the diplomatic affairs editor of The Hindu. Let me flip the script a bit, and instead of going to my political guests, as one usually does, let me start off with you, Suhasini. What do you make of this entire charade of USAID allegations that have been coming in from the United States and the blowback that's happened in India? Is it conceivable that for years this shadowy organization was sending millions of dollars to both governments and under both presidency in the United States, yet we still don't know? Till Dodge had to come in and step in, we did not know how much money was actually coming in, for what purpose they were coming in, and whether they were actually trying to destabilize a regime or not.
Well, you know, when a US president and his chosen nominee for this newly set up department make allegations, they have to be taken seriously by everyone. Even though I have to say that in this case, the allegations that are made aren't really necessarily backed up by information put out publicly. So there's no way for us to verify what they're saying. And there have been cases where, for example, Mr. Elon Musk, who's the head of the Department of Government Efficiency in the US, has said that the USAID was putting $8 billion into a project. It turned out to be just $8 million. He's been asked about mistakes like this and said, yes, I will make mistakes. I won't bat 1,000 every time. So we have to wait and see. And I think it's fitting that the government says it is looking into the allegations of what USAID may or may not have funded in India. You're quite right. Since 2001, USAID has put in close to $3 billion, about $2.9 billion dollars into India. About a fourth of that has actually just come in since 2020, particularly due to COVID. Since 2010 or 2011, I think we were able to count at least 10, 12 different MOUs with ministries in India. This is apart from all the NGOs. But the Ministry of Health has been in touch, has signed agreements with USAID, the Ministry of Child and Social Welfare, the ministries of, the Department of Science and Technology, the Indian National Security Advisor and the US NSA actually held a meeting of the Initiative of Critical and Emerging Technologies, ICET, last year, and they had a USAID signing at that meeting. They also had a USAID representative there. So you can see the wide range of areas where the USAID, as the legitimate US government agency, the Agency for International Development, has been involved in government-to-government agreements over the last, few years, but also over the last few decades. So I don't think it's surprising that they are involved. If the government is reviewing those contracts, then they must show that there is something wrong with those. The specific allegation, obviously, of this 21 million grant meant for quote-unquote voter turnout does seem like it needs more investigation. You pointed to a report that said maybe it went to Bangladesh and said, I'm not sure about that. As I said, there's very little that has come out of the DOGE department in the US apart from the headline.
Jasmine Sandwale then come in at this point with Suhasini setting this debate for very beautifully. It is an established fact that both governments for several years have been collaborating with USAID on several key projects for many, many years by now. When it is established that USAID has been an influence for several years without being questioned, without being unchecked, why are we suddenly so keen on jumping on the words of a president who, let's be honest, has made billions, he has misconstrued billions as millions before, according to an Indian Express report, has confused Delhi with Dhaka before, and we have jumped the gun to try and point fingers at each other politically. Should this not be a time when there should be a bipartisan probe being announced into these allegations which have come in from the US president, instead of automatically party spokesperson jumping to the guns and blaming that, no, you took money, no, you took money?
Well, let me begin with this, that this is a very, very serious allegation. It is, after all, coming from the newly elected president of the United States of America, and it cannot be just sidestepped that, this is a frivolous statement. The very repercussions of such an accusation, I really don't know which word in English language I can find, that after all, after this India's independence, is paramount to every Indian citizen and to every political party. And this needs serious investigation, because this is total meddling into the political democratic system in our country. And this needs to be totally threadbarely investigated. And it is very unfortunate. And I want to bring it to everybody's notice that in 2023, Mr. Rahul Gandhi had gone to London, and in a very vocal speech, he had said that foreign nations need to help India with its policy. So what was he trying to tout? What was he trying to advocate? That was India incompetent in taking care of itself? And I also want to bring one thing more to your notice, is that Veena Reddy was made the head of this mission, and she came to India in 2021, and post-election, post-Lok Sabha election, she has left the country and gone back to the US. If she was here, more investigation could have taken place. And yes, I agree with you that total investigation, a thorough investigation needs to be done on such a huge allegation which has been made. It is actually not an allegation. It has come from the President of the United States of America, and we need to really pay heed to it.
Sujata Paul, today Mr. Pawan Khera, who is one of the top leaders of your party, highlighted this Indian Express report that we have on our screens and claimed that, this is proof that we can't take the allegations that have been leveled by Trump, or at least the allegations that have been leveled by the BJP, seriously, because the money was not even meant for India, it was meant for Bangladesh. Even if this money, $21 million supposedly for turnout, was meant for Bangladesh, the fact remains that this is proof of, we all saw what happened last year in Bangladesh and how there was a concerted effort to topple the Sheikh Hasina regime. If nothing else, this proves that USAID money can and has been used to try and topple elected regimes in a democratic country in the South Asian neighborhood. Should this not be a matter of concern? Okay, I think we seem to have been having a jinx with Congress spokesperson on this debate for 2 days in a row. I don't know what's the issue here, but we'll try and get that connection back. Oh, Sujata Paul is back. Sujata is back. Please go on, Sujata.
At the outset, let me make it very clear that after World War I and II, when the United Nations was formed, why was it formed? It was formed so that the world could come together. And from there on, democracy is something that is so treasured that there have been various organizations that have worked together to make sure that the world remains democratic largely. Now, therefore, we have nothing against global partnerships or developmental agencies and interaction with other agencies. when it comes to the Bharatiya Janata Party, they are the ones who have to answer because they have been in power for the last 11 years. And Ritangshu, is it not a failure of this government that they have to rely on what you call Doge and I call Dodge, because this is simply dodging domestic issues and trying to take the attention away from there when people are asking questions of this government. And the fact is that the governments in the country, the state governments, wherever the Congress has been in power, have been destabilized by the Bharatiya Janata Party, and the government has used its power to do so. And today, when they are relying on Mr. Donald Trump, who is a friend of Mr. Modi's, whether it is deliberate or not deliberate, when he takes the name of Delhi instead of Dhaka, the question arises as to whether it is the country which is sovereign really for this Bharatiya Janata Party RSS combined. Because let us go back a little. You saw the video of one of Mr. Jaishankar's son with Smriti Irani, when she became a brand ambassador for USAID. So what we are saying today is that we need a white paper. Let's get a white paper and let us know who has got money for what, and let's make it very clear to people as to where and how the USAID funding has happened. And for the last 11 years, Mr. Modi's government didn't know what was happening, whether a lot of money was coming to the NGOs, whether he had taken, money from them, from USAID, to ensure that demonetization was placed. You remember that launch of that joint program that the government did with USAID? And there are a whole list of programs which they did with the USAID. So who has to answer these questions? Who has been in power for the last 11 years? The government must answer. And the biggest question is that when Mr. Modi, when he was not even Gujarat CM, and he was just an ordinary RSS worker, what had he gone in 1993 to the United States for? What was he doing over there with the American Council of Young Political Leaders, which was practically funded by the USAID? And we have grown up listening to this statement that RSS is America ka pittu. We have grown up listening to it. So clearly today the RSS and the BJP are exposed. Do you remember that Mrs. Indira Gandhi also never trusted the RSS for this very reason, because it was the USAID which obviously like other
what I don't understand
must have been used by the BJP RSS and the ideological forefathers of the BJP to interfere in the country's affairs. It is clear that the RSS BJP will always rely on foreign forces to destabilize the democracy of this country.
So I find it fascinating. The BJP says it's the Congress which relies on foreign funding. So BJP says it's the Congress which relies on foreign funding. It has cited some incidents. The Congress says that historically the RSS has always been relying has been America's puppet or whatever to get foreign funding. Kishore Subramaniam, the way I see it here, neither of this covers the current government here, which has been in power for 11 years in a lot of glory. Best case scenario, this entire concern is misplaced. We have overjudged the seriousness of the situation based on how much there is foreign interference, and that then reflects badly as to why did we jump onto Donald Trump's statements so seriously. Worst case scenario, let's assume that every one of BJP's allegations are right, that the money has been coming in, it has been used to prop up Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra, make it a Bharat Todo Yatra. Even the lexicon between what the words used by USAID and what the words used by Rahul Gandhi in his speeches are the same. If all these allegations is true, does it still not reflect badly on the security apparatus of our country that we are unaware about how foreign agencies are allowed to interfere in our elections, and we again have to rely on a 3-week-old presidency to tell us that?
Okay, good evening to you, and thank you for having me on the panel, and good evening to all the panelists. So having heard all of them, and happy to be here with my friend Tehseen again, because we are talking about this daily, and it's just fortunate and unfortunate that in all channels we are debating this. But let's come to this moot point. So first point, today's debate on what Mr. Pawan Khera said with regards to the funding, I would like to know, Mr. Pawan Khera very conveniently relied on the Indian Express piece, where it is said that Mr. Donald Trump has confused between the $21 being given to Dhaka and Delhi. So if you want, I can play the video, but most of the people who are on Twitter will know the video is available, that Donald Trump in that same speech has said that $21 million was given to India and $29 million was given to Bangladesh, Dhaka. So it's very, very clear. Mr. Pawan Khera also jumped the gun by reading a piece, and he in fact apparently used the word excellent piece of investigative journalism. I don't know, excellent only happens when it is favoring them. That's point number one. So he missed the moot point there. Point number two, the Congress spokesperson who spoke on your channel just before me said that BJP is destabilizing Congress state governments. If she is going to think that USAID is funding to disturb state governments of Congress in Karnataka or any other place where whatever little place they are left out, I think she is living in a utopian world. Congratulations to her for thinking so. The third point, she said that RSS is linked to BJP, linked to USAID, and BJP has been using and they have been funding RSS, and Mr. Modi traveled on USAID fund in 1993. I would like to ask the honorary spokesperson of Congress, how did she get the veracity of this news that Mr. Modi traveled on USAID? So let's not come on national television and just talk whatever we want. Fundamentally,
no, but Kishorji, answer my question. Answer my question here. Why aren't we ordering our own independent investigation instead of relying on hearsay and instead of relying from foreign sources? Because it is a matter of concern. As a citizen, I am very concerned if for 11 years or if not more than that, a foreign agency has been pumping money to color my perception about my elected government here. It's something a matter of concern, and who allowed that to happen isn't the concern. So technically a white paper, black paper, whatever paper you call it, whatever investigation you call it, should serve that purpose, no?
Yeah, okay. So let me answer this question directly and pointed. You heard what the MEA said today. The MEA clearly said it is deeply disturbing and they will look into it. Let us understand that you understand how things work at a global level and at a bilateral level when you're talking about a country like US's stature. You can't have the way, Pawan Khera or any Congress spokesman jumps and writes a tweet without even verifying or reading and says, wow, what a piece, we have won the case. This is not the way MEA works. This is bilateral relationship between the largest democracy of the world and the most powerful democracy in the world. So you need to understand there are bilateral issues, there are geopolitical issues, and there are timelines and methodologies. I am confident and sure that the accountability and the white paper or the investigative trails leading to the money going to which person, which organization, which NGO will come out. And if my hunch, I'm repeating, with enough amount of responsibility, my hunch is right, it would have gone to NGOs related to funding anti-BJP, anti-establishment, and not pro-BJP. This is my hunch. I don't have any evidence. I'm not going to state claim like Mr. Pawan Khera did.
No, we do have evidence, Tehseen. We have evidence on that aspect as well, and we have those figures on the screen. Tehseen, come in at this point. This particular figure is quite damning here, and after that, I'll go to Swanji also. That funding for the UPA government was at $204.2 million coming in from USAID till 2014. In the last 10 years, it's only been 1.5 million, and that is because it stopped in 2015. So for the last 9 years, if not 10, there has been no USAID funding for the government here. But for the NGOs, that funding has only increased in the last 10 years. Yes. Is this not a telltale sign that the money which was once going to the Congress government is now going towards NGOs, presumably to get the Congress back into power, whatever be those intentions?
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Good evening to all my fellow panelists and to all your viewers. And I think the question you asked answers it. So was the USAID pre-2015, which was the UPA-era government, going to the UPA-era government or the UPA government to change the regime? Because the only regime that changed was in 2014. So clearly, I think for all the non-common sense that the Congress, though I vote for Congress has, and sometimes they run like an NGO themselves, I don't think the Congress was interested in losing power. I think they wanted to win power. So it clearly that answers that question. So the question comes, when did the funding to the NGOs increase? As you rightly put it out, post 2020. Now, please help me, and your viewers may help me. Let's Google who was the Prime Minister of India post 2020. Shri Narendra Modi ji. One day, all these FCRA rules and NGO rules that were changed, tightened up. So, is the government of India telling me, a voter and a citizen of India, that the government of India was clueless about funding coming into India to affect the electoral processes of India? Okay, then the Election Commissioner of India, who does wonderful shairi, says elections in India are robust and can never be affected by foreign influences. Now the BJP says, look, the elections could be affected. Caveat, they don't know which date, they have no idea, but it could be. So the Election Commissioner of India is lying. The only one number that we do have is by a gentleman called Mike Benz. He says there was substantial funding to India with regards to elections, and he talks about 2019. Please again Google, who was the president of India in 2019? Yeah. Shri Donald Trump. Who was the Prime Minister of India in 2019? Shri Narendra Modi ji. There was no regime change. But was Donald Trump himself unaware that funding was coming to India for a regime change in 2019 while he was president of India? Which leads us to a pertinent question to ask. The entire issue is about $21 million, in today's rate about 182 crores. Election Commission itself says that the total cost of elections in India is roughly about $16 billion or 1.35 lakh crores. So is it then the BJP or the Election Commission or somebody's argument that 182 crores was spent to affect an election that cost 1,35,000 crores? Now, there are two things out here. Let's hear what Donald Trump said today, because he repeated the statement of India getting money. Perhaps he reads the Indian Express. Donald Trump says the money was a kickback. Obviously, that kickback goes to America, not in India. So is the Indian government and the RBI so clueless that money comes into India, goes back to America as a kickback, and nobody has any clue? Or that money was only circulating in America? We again don't have a clue about it. So secondly, if there was voter increase, and presumably you're talking about Dalit voter increase, then was the BJP accepting that the BJP tried to suppress Dalit voters, thereby giving it an advantage? So none of this is looking bad on the opposition. It's only looking bad on the Congress. I just have one lifeline. The day I am in government, you should ask questions of me, how did money come in? You can't ask questions of the opposition of how did money come in when you are supposed to keep my country secure. If my country's elections can be compromised, you as government are compromising the sovereignty of my country, and you need to be held accountable.
Jasmine Sandwalia, respond. Direct questions to the ruling government. Jasmine Sandwalia, as a spokesman of the BJP, please respond.
Well, I totally disagree with Mr. Poonawalla's argument. He has raised up very relevant issues. But I would also try and say that this money started coming in 2012. And when in 2012, like he said, that we can Google it, the Prime Minister of this country was not Mr. Narendra Modi. And
Jasmine ji, that's the paradox I've been trying to explain. That's just one small interruption. That's the paradox I've been trying to explain. If you claim the money started coming in 2012, that means if we have to assume that this money is benefiting the person which is not in power, not the incumbent, that means the money benefited the BJP, going by that logic argument. If you're saying the money came in 2019 or even any time post 2014, that means again for 4 of those years from 2016 to 2020, Donald Trump was in power then.
I'm saying it started coming in 2012.
So who benefited from the money? Why will the Congress party, which was in power in 2012, try to encourage foreign interference to get destabilize itself?
Why will they not? Because it will help them re-win the election. Why will they not want money? You tell me. If they're wanting the voter turnout to be more, and they know that the BJP is resurging and they could lose the elections, they will definitely use that money.
Sujata Paul, would you like to respond?
Yes. Okay. So is it me or is it Sujata? Who do you want to respond?
No, Tehseen. I'm asked that Tehseen, that question is to Sujata. I'll come to you.
Please let her do it. Please let her do it.
Sujata Paul raised her hand first. Sujata, please go ahead.
Yes. You know, Ritangshu, it's very clear that the BJP is saying that the money was brought in to destabilize us. But like my friend Tehseen has already said, were they trying to suppress a certain section of voters? Every person has an equal right in this country to vote. And one very important thing, when I spoke about this organization, ACPPYL, when Mr. Modi had visited the US, I said that he held various meetings with this organization of young people, American young people. And this is basically linked to the USAID. One, he never answered one single question of Mrs. Smriti Irani. And that meeting, that panel discussion that I was mentioning about, that took place, very recently last month. Why is he not talking about it? And when we talk about USAID, why is it that Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, as CM of Maharashtra, met with the USAID to collaborate with them, and this meeting took place on 10th November 2022. They have to answer. It is the BJP people who are meeting them. Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, he took their head to run his Mohalla clinics. As far as the demonetization angle is concerned, I've already mentioned
No,
it.
the point is, Sujata Paul, that is because retrospectively we have suddenly decided that USAID is this Illuminati-type League of Shadows organization that everyone who ever deals with them is a villain and everyone who ever deals with this is a traitor. So, Asani Heather, does this make sense for you? For so many years, Go ahead, complete your point, then I'll go to Suhasini. Go ahead, your point,
Ritangshu,
complete your point.
I have clearly said right at the outset that the Congress party is demanding a white paper on the USAID funding in India. What more can I ask for? It is the government's responsibility to present a white paper. It will make it clear to the people of this country who are the real owners of this country as to who was playing with India. And the government in place today clearly shows that they had no idea what was happening for the last 11 years if this were true.
Okay, I have another important question at this point. So Asini, I think, and after that I'll have to wrap up. We all know that civil society is a very important part in any healthy democracy here, and civil society relies almost extensively on foreign funding here. And we have seen several successful cases here of state governments, of the governments and civil society and NGOs with philanthropic support from richer organizations across the world working towards voter turnout. And voter turnout is not a bad word necessarily if you're getting more people to vote. And other similarly health and sanitation schemes here. Are we not throwing the baby out with the bathwater by suddenly castigating this entire concept of foreign aid as foreign interference and automatically putting the lens of it being aimed at bringing down a government?
Look, I think when it comes to subjects like foreign aid, we have to be both cautious, but we also have to be a little more secure as Indians, that it is not so easy to subvert our internal processes through external forces. India is not such a weak country that this is something that can easily be done. The second point I want to really make, just listening to the political argument over this, is it's all very well to point score between us, but the question really has to be, is the US showing itself as an undependable partner? After all, under USAID, the US made certain commitments to India. Said we will help with this. We will, if you commit to a certain climate change goal, for example, USAID will help with green transitions. If you commit to pollution goals, for example, USAID will put this much money to help your government work on water sanitation, water and sanitation. Now a new US government comes to power and says everything before was corrupt. We're going to just freeze everybody's funding, freeze even funding that India and the US together were doing for countries in Asia and Africa, and just walks away from old agreements, which is really something that breaks the tenets of international relationships. So instead of putting the blame where perhaps it should go to begin with, which is the United States showing itself as an undependable, unpredictable partner. Here we are in India simply, pointing at each other with the idea that somehow this amount of $21 million, which really does not amount to that much more. And I do want to make this point because I've heard this debate play out for 4 days now, that the tweet itself from the Department of Government Efficiency says very clearly $21 million for voter turnout in India was to have been given, was to have been granted to India, and it has been cancelled. They were talking about a $21 million in the future, not about $21 million that have already come in. So I do think that the entire bent of our arguments is about political point scoring and not about the larger question, which is let the US explain what it is doing. Let the US explain how it will make up for the kind of commitments it has made in the past. If it's shutting down USAID, that's fine. But how is it going to make up for the commitments that the United States made as a sovereign to another sovereign government? And the third question really has to be that we need to be a little more circumspect about how easy it is to subvert our own democratic processes.
Yes, there are multiple questions that need to be asked on an internal level and then to external level to the United States. And this is the last thing we need is political point scoring, bickering and trying to retrospectively malign people's intentions and organizations at this point. Unfortunately, I do have to move on here. I know Tehseen wanted to make a point, but Tehseen, we have you with us and also Jasmine ji also in our next debate as well. So unfortunately, I want to go across to that as well. But thank you so much. Jasmine Sandwalia stays on with us. But thank you, Kishore Subramaniam. Thank you, Sujata Paul ji. And also thank you, Suhasini, of course, for trying to make sense of this